Most groups don't run on equal influence. They look like a crowd, but they move like a unit because one person is setting the direction, the tone, and what the group treats as safe. If you miss that center, you waste energy pushing on the edges while the real power stays untouched. The group's strength is usually borrowed from whoever holds it together. I'm Chief. Welcome to Chief Logic. Today we're breaking down Law 42, a law about coordination and why changing one person can change an entire room. Law 42 says, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. People hear that and think it's about aggression, but it's really about the structure and signal. In most groups, there's a center of gravity. Sometimes it's the official leader, and sometimes it's the unofficial one who decides what's cool, what's risky, and what gets ignored. That person shapes what feels acceptable, what gets rewarded, and what gets punished. They decide whose ideas get green lighted and whose ideas get smothered. The group doesn't need a written rule book when it has a person who functions like one. Here's what's happening under the surface. Most people inside a group are managing risks, not pursuing truth. So they watch for cues before they commit. When tension shows up, people don't suddenly become brave thinkers. They look around for the safest signal and they follow it. Groups operate on imitation under pressure. When the center approves, people relax because approval feels like cover. When the center disapproves, people hesitate because hesitation feels safer than standing alone. Even if someone privately agrees with you, they may stay quiet if the shepherd frames you as a problem, because the group learns fast who gets protected and who gets exposed. That's why the shepherd matters more than the sheep. The shepherd provides coordination, and the coordination turns scattered opinions into one force that moves together. When the shepherd is steady, the group stays aligned because the signal stays consistent. When the shepherd is exposed, weakened, or removed, the signal gets unreliable. Without a reliable signal, people revert to their own motives, and the unity breaks into smaller pockets, which is what scatter looks like in real life. This law matters anytime you're facing resistance that feels bigger than one person. People can make the same mistake over and over, treating the group like a solid wall, arguing with everyone, defending themselves to everyone, and trying to win everyone over. That approach drains you and strengthens the group. When you respond to every voice, you make yourself the main target, and you give the shepherd an easy job. They can keep the crowd unified by pointing at you as the reason things feel tense. If you ignore Law 42, the cost is exhaustion with no progress. You spend time debating the loudest voices, but many of those voices are echoes. You think you're dealing with 10 independent opinions, but you're often dealing with one influence multiplied across 10 miles. Meanwhile, the person at the center keeps moving. They adjust the story, redirect blame, and decide what information travels and what information dies. They decide who gets access and who gets frozen out. That's how people lose position without losing a single argument. This law also explains why groups can shift. A team can start slipping, a friend circle can turn cold, a culture can get toxic while everybody blames personalities and misses structure. Underneath it, the shepherd changed, got threatened, or stopped holding the room the way they used to. In workplaces, you can spot the center once you stop listening only to words. Pay attention to where eyes go after a key point lands, whose reaction gets checked before people speak, and who can interrupt without consequences. That's the center of gravity working. If they approve, people loosen up and the plan suddenly feels doable. If they signal doubt, the room tightens and problems appear that weren't urgent a minute ago, because the group isn't deciding from scratch, it's taking cues about what's safe to support. Now, here's the part people misread. Striking the shepherd doesn't mean starting a war. It means removing their ability to coordinate the group against you by weakening the signal they rely on. Sometimes the cleanest move is to take away the stage. If the shepherd uses the group as an audience, you shift the conversation to a smaller space where performers can't recruit backup. And a one-on-one conversation changes the math because they can't hide behind group energy. Sometimes the move is to separate authority from influence. You adjust how decisions are made so informal control has less reach, which might mean clearer criteria, a different meeting structure, or a change in who needs to sign off. You're not attacking a person, you're changing the wiring. Sometimes the move is to touch credibility, calmly and directly. When influence depends on the story, you don't insult the storyteller. You put facts next to the story and let the gap speak for itself. Because once the room sees the gap, the shepherd's signal loses force. When the shepherd loses credibility, the sheep don't automatically become loyal to you. They become less coordinated. And that's the point. A scattered group has more individual thinking and less unified resistance, which gives you room to move. Control with Law 42 starts with observation and restraint. Identify who the group follows when the tension rises, and watch who the group protects even when they're wrong. Then move with precision. Don't burn energy trying to win the whole crowd, because crowds are cautious and reactive. If you challenge them head on, they will cling tighter to whoever feels like protection, even if that protection is the problem. So address the structure, not the noise. Reduce the shepherd's ability to coordinate by limiting stage, limiting excess, or limiting credibility, and do it without turning it into theater. There's also a leadership lesson inside this law. Sometimes you are the shepherd, and people take cues from you even when you don't notice it. Your mood becomes the weather, your reaction becomes permission, and your silence becomes a signal. If you understand Law 42, you become disciplined about what you broadcast. You don't create panic with your tone, and you don't create scatter with inconsistency, because stability in you becomes stability in the group. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will scatter means this. If you want to change group behavior, stop fighting the crowd. Find the coordinating force, change the signal, and the room will change with it. Stay sharp, stay grounded.